Okay, so my name is Bruce Outridge. We're going to draw this picture in Procreate. So the way I like to start it, of course, I've got a sketch done in my regular paper sketchbook, and once I've got that done, you can either import that, or what I like to do is just start drawing it out right on a layer in Procreate. I use orange or another color, and just put in all the elements that I need. So once I get that done, I put a layer in just for each element. I put one for the table, and then I will draw each person on their own layer. So each person has a black line layer, which will allow me to resize it if I need to, move them around, readjust. If a client decides on any changes, I can do that. And I'm going to now just keep doing that for each person in my picture. I'm going to add a new layer, and then I'm going to start drawing them. And this, again, allows me just to resize them and finish it off. So you'll see that you can still see some of them, like you'll see a line at the back. You can either erase that or you can just color underneath it. Sometimes I color each person individually. It depends on the scope of the caricature. But what I'll do is once I have this set up and all drawn in, I send the line drawing to the customer for them to approve. So I just keep drawing in all of these individual people, do all of the black line work. So that, if you think of like a sandwich, you have the layer underneath, color is going to be in the middle, and black is going to be on the top. So I draw all the black first and get that, get each person in there. And again, each one's done on its own layer so that they can be adjusted or moved, or if I need to repair something on one person, I can do that. So I throw them all into here into different ways, and again, I'm just following the sketch that I have in my sketchbook and just putting people in. You can see little readjustments here and there. That's the power of being digital. And the way that I set this up to begin with is when I did the initial sketch, I sent that to the customer for approval. They said, yeah, that's the layout we want. So now this is the drawing part, which will go to the customer for approval. So I get everybody in there. Once I get all the people in, I normally like to do my background on another layer. So I will do the background just by itself once I've got everybody drawn in. So each person's on their own layer, any front elements are on their own layer, and then the background is done on its own layer. And the background in this one, because this was a picture for a winery, it's not too big, so I'll put that in by itself. So you can see here I'm adding items that go on the table. They were on their own layer too. And I can switch layers off sometimes if I want to be able to see what I'm drawing. That's the nice part about using Photoshop or Procreate. You can certainly do the same thing in Photoshop. Procreate comes with the iPad Pro, and so that's what I like to use. So I just get all my elements drawn in there. Here goes the background. I'm putting that in, the little wine barrels that were in the background. Nothing too fancy, but they're on their own layer. And then once I have it finished, I just delete that layer with the rough sketch, put in any last details that I need, and start coloring. So my coloring is all done on a layer by itself underneath all of the black layers. And I will put in the background, and then I'll just I start at the back and just start putting in everybody in. You'll see I've turned it to black. That's because I've turned off the white background so that I can see some of the grays that I was putting in, because by default, it's a gray background in Procreate. So whenever I'm coloring something gray, I turn off the gray layer so that I can see, I turn off the white layer, sorry, so I can see just the gray, and that way I can continue coloring it. So I'm going to color everybody in here. I've chosen a brown tone for things because of the winery look, putting in some last minute details for everybody. And again, whenever you need to, just either turn off a layer, turn on a layer. You can see here, just to make sure I've got everything, I'll flip off the layer to turn off the white layer so I can make sure that anything white has been painted. What will happen is if you don't do this and someone turns it to a PNG file or something, all of those places that you haven't painted will be there. So once I get this finished, I'm down to just putting in some highlights and shadows. I've got my flat colors in here. Flat is where there's no shadow, no degradation. You just put in one color, and then what I do is I go back and I add shadows and highlights after that, after my flats have been put in. So this is pretty well finished. We're just adding some more details. I could have stopped at any time if I was sending this for approval to the customer. And once I've got it in, all the shadow in the way I want, I'll consider this pretty well finished. Now, the customer wanted their logo in and some names on there, and I do all of that part in Illustrator after. So I just export this out of Procreate, and I send it to Illustrator and put in all the text. And this is what the final artwork looks like. So hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.